Hi guys, I hope you are all doing well. Today I thought I will show you how I make little notebooks out of paper scraps and out of these beautiful Victorian greeting cards that you can see on the screen right now. These are from Lorna from TaylorMadeJournals on Etsy. I will link the shop below. So I'm going to be making a cover out of those beautiful greeting cards. And you can see me flicking through these. I printed a lot of them and I'm just trying to match them. So I'm going to be making 4 notebooks today, and I wanted to have one card for the front cover and one for the back cover. And I'm just looking at what seems to be cohesive and working together nice. And I chose 2 sets of 2 that are kind of more blue and more wintry, and 2 that have a lot more red and are going to be more sort of traditional Christmas themed. So now I'm making sure both of the cards in each pair are the same size because I'm going obviously to be using them for my cover. So I'm just trimming down the card that is slightly larger, and I am not being, too careful about this. I don't actually mind what size they are going to be. So I'm not like aiming them to be 4 by 6 or anything like this because I'm going to be measuring them later and I'm going to be making the inside match the cover. So now I'm showing you some papers that I'm going to be using for my inside covers. And as you could see, I even have like a cover of a paper pad, Stamperia paper pad, or very often make a pattern on the inside of the cover so you get one free patterned paper in their packs. So I'm going to be using both of these papers that you can see, and I'm now measuring my cards, so my front and back covers, and I decided to just write down the measurements so I don't mess it up because as I said, they are not even. So now I am going to be cutting my piece of paper that's going to serve as the inside cover, and I am cutting it to the exact height of my notebook, and I am doubling the width so that I can fold it in half later, and it's going to form like a base for my booklet. So I'm cutting 2 for the red notebooks, and like I said, I'm just folding these in half, and I am going to be gluing the cards, the greeting cards, on the front and on the back of this booklet. So here I'm just checking if the size is alright, and I decided to just ink the edges of these cards with my vintage photo distress oxide just to give them a little bit more finished and vintage look. Obviously these are printed out on matte photo paper, so these are just reproductions of greeting cards, but I think that adding the ink on the edges just makes them look a little bit more authentic. So I'm going to be using wet glue to glue these down, and I wondered if I wanted to use double-sided tape, but then I decided that I'm going to be sewing around these notebooks. So just if you're not going to be sewing on your notebooks, just make sure you use enough glue or you use double-sided tape so that the card doesn't come off from the front or the back. And I'm using wet glue, and when it's dry, I'm just going to be sewing around it, and you will see it a little bit later. Like I said, I am going to be linking Lorna's shop below so you guys can go to her shop and print and buy and print those same cards if you want to recreate this project. But of course, it's so versatile and you can basically use anything for the cover. You can use any images you like, you can use patterned paper, you can use book pages. What I am showing you here is just like the base of the way I make these little notebooks, and you can use it however you like. So now I'm going to be reinforcing the spine because I am going to be binding my papers, and I want the spine to be kind of stronger than it is now, because now it's just a single sheet of patterned paper. So I am choosing out of these sari fabrics that I have, I am choosing one that I think fits the best, and it's this vintage looking gold, brown gold sort of fabric. And I am using again some wet glue, and once again, if you are not going to be sewing with your machine around the cover, just make sure you use enough glue. I used just a little bit because I didn't want the glue to seep through the fabric, but I also knew that I am going to be sewing around and that sewing will actually reinforce it even more, so I didn't have to use that much glue. Now I'm rounding the corners of the cover because I think again that it makes it look a little bit more finished, just some finishing touches with my inking, making sure the booklet folds well with the fabric on the spine. And I decided to decorate the cover even more. And I did not want to sort of cover the images because they were so cute and just so vintage. So I decided to choose a label, and I was umming and ahhing on this for a while. So I just cut a lot of the footage out so you guys wouldn't get too bored. But basically, I'm going through my little container that I keep labels in and some little pieces of ephemera, and I get all of or most of my labels from Tracy Fox. She has beautiful labels and very many sets of labels in her shop. And I decided on this small one, but still I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so that I don't cover too much of the image, and it's going to be overhanging a little bit um, of the cover, and I'm just going to trim it down. And I do it often with my labels. I don't know why, I just like the look, I guess, of the label just kind of overhanging the edge a little bit. So now that that's done, I am going to be sewing around, and you will see in a moment. I did all of the covers because you saw me making one, and I think it's enough. So I just made the exact same process. I did the same steps and I made the four covers. So for the blue ones, I chose just a piece of lace to reinforce the spine and some turquoise thread, and I used I think it's brown or black. I don't remember. I think it's brown thread, and pieces of sari fabric for the spine. And I added a little label on all of the covers so that the person who owns the notebook can write a date or their name or anything they like. I really like this one. I think this might be my favorite. Love the blue of the background of the snowy sky. So now we are going to be making the inside of the notebook, and I have a lot of paper scraps and a few sheets of tea stained paper. So now I'm measuring my notebook again so that I know what size the pages should be. And I am going to be making the pages slightly smaller than the cover so they fit comfortably inside of the cover. And I'm going to be making two full-sized sheets with the paper that you see me cutting now, the tea stain paper. And for the rest, I'm just going to be using various paper scraps that I have left from other projects. And it's a perfect way to use your paper scraps. I know that my paper scrap box never stops growing. So I adore making these little notebooks and using all of these scraps, especially those like narrow one that have like this awkward size that I usually don't know what else I can use them for, but this is just a perfect way. So I cut some of those papers and I'm just folding them down. And I also have a lot of scraps from pattern papers, and I'm choosing some that fit the color scheme. So I think I chose three sheets, or three scraps actually, of paper. And again, I'm doing the same thing, so just cutting them to the size and folding them in half. And again, I'm not being too careful about cutting them because I actually want the paper to be, the sheets of paper to be different sizes, because I think it adds a lot of interest in a notebook. And because I'm not going to be embellishing it further, I'm not going to be making any embellishment for the pages itself. I think that the variety of sizes and the variety of types of paper just gives a nice feel and a lot of interest. So here I'm showing you how it looks, and this sheet was upside down, but this is basically what I was talking about: different sizes, different types of paper, different colors, and it all fits perfectly into my small cover. Now for the binding, I am going to be using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, but a very simplified version. When I'm not measuring anything, I'm eyeballing everything. So what you will see me doing here is using my awl to make one hole in the middle, and then one hole above it and one hole below it. And I'm going to be binding my notebook with linen thread, which is what I use for my journals generally. So I'm just choosing a needle, and I take about 3 lengths of my notebook of this linen thread. And here you can see me doing the pamphlet stitch. So I'm going from the inside through the middle hole, then back through the top hole. And you can see that I needed to use some pliers to take my needle off. This can happen, and it's perfectly normal. And then all the way down through the bottom hole, like this, and back through the middle hole, and that's basically the end. I'm going to be tying a double knot so it's all secure. I'm also making sure the threads aren't loose, so my paper won't be loose inside the cover, and I am tying a secure double knot. And I am leaving those threads long, as you can see here, because I'm going to be decorating them a little bit with beads. You don't have to do this. I just like adding beads everywhere basically. So here is my little box that I keep my beads in, and I am going to be choosing some blue ones and some silvery white ones, anything really that looks kind of wintry and fits this the cover. And I had a lot of trouble for some reason with these beads. So again, I had to cut a lot of footage off, but I did spend some time choosing my beads and then adding them to those hanging threads. And on the bottom, the sort of below the beads, I'm again tying a knot so they don't fall off, and they just look so pretty. This is just a very pretty little decoration, these hanging thingies. I really like it. Okay, and now we are going to be making some pockets for the inside covers. And I am going to be making two pockets. And here on the front cover, I'm going to be making a sort of a side tack spot, I guess. So I took another scrap piece of paper. I am cutting it to the length of my notebook, and I'm going to be punching the edge of it, rounding in the corners first, and I am going to be punching the edge of it to just add a little bit of interest. And my desk and my camera shakes terribly when I punch, so you didn't have to go through this with me, but basically I'm just adding some wet glue and gluing this to the front of my cover, and it creates a nice tack spot. And I'm going to be making a little pocket on the back out of this tiny scrap. And I guess this is the reason why my scrap box gets bigger and bigger, because I just can't throw away even the tiniest scrap, and I always try to find ways to use them. So again, I just punched the edge of this, I rounded the corner, and I am gluing it down as a little pocket on the cover. And we are nearing the end of this process. And obviously, all the sort of details that I'm doing here, the beads, the pockets, it's up to you. If you want to make them, great. If you don't, your notebook is going to be great as well. So the last thing that I am going to be making is the closure. Because you can see this notebook does not stay closed because I added a lot of scraps of paper. So I am going to create a very simple closure. I am punching a hole on the back cover with my crocodile, and I'm going to be adding an eyelet through this hole. And you can have eyelets on the front and the back cover if you like, but I'm just choosing for this project, I'm just choosing one hole on the back cover of my notebook, and I decided to use some sari silk for the closure. So I'm just taking some of this beautiful sari silk that I got from Perrin Yarns on Etsy, and I'm just pulling it through the hole, through the eyelet actually, and it's as simple as that. I just tie a bow and my closure is ready. So that's basically the whole process of how I make my little notebooks. And of course, there are so many ways that you can make them. If you just use this tutorial as a base, you can just create your own version. And I hope this was helpful, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Here I'm going to show you a final flip through. I did not make all of these on the camera because it would take me forever. It really took me a few hours to make all of these notebooks, but I am so pleased with them. I love how they turned out, and I love those greeting cards from Lorna's shop. And I often add these little notebooks to my journals that I sell because, with journals, they are very often quite big, quite chunky, not very comfortable to carry around with you. But these little notebooks are just so perfect to take with you wherever you go, to just put them in your purse and use them as your everyday carry. I love using them myself. I love using them for little notes, for grocery lists, shopping lists, or just writing notes of anything that comes to my mind, or even little snippets of my day that I just don't want to forget. And I don't have to carry my huge chunky journal with me to keep those memories. I just go through my little notebook and transfer them to my journals as I wish. So I really encourage you to check out Lorna's shop. I think I may have said this before, but her shop is one of my favorite Etsy stores to buy digital prints, and she has such an amazing variety of printables. And especially for Christmas, if you're interested, she has numerous collections. And I've bought from her many times before, and her images are always very high quality, and they look beautifully when they are printed on matte photo paper or good cardstock, I guess. So, again, I hope you guys find this process useful. I hope you try this project. I hope you will try to use up some of your scraps making little notebooks like this. And I hope you all have a great day. Uh, and I will see you very soon in my next video, which will probably be another episode of my junk journal with me. Bye.